Love it or hate it, you'll be changing civs throughout the ages in Civilization 7, but your leader will always remain. Let's take a look at the first 10 revealed leaders for Civilization 7. We'll start with a relatable example. The well-known Hatshepsut, leader of traditionally Egypt in Civilization 7 and lover of both culture and the economy. Also a lover of wonders and navigable rivers. She likes leaders with fewer wonders than her. A little bit of a jealous gal, maybe. Also has a starting bonus for navigable rivers, those ones that we can finally embark down properly in Civilization 7. With a 15% production bonus to buildings and wonders in cities adjacent to rivers. The city must be adjacent. That's a powerful production bonus. And adding to that, +1 culture for every imported resource. Perhaps she likes to trade. And I'll talk briefly a little bit more about resources later in the video when we cover off Amina, another lover of resource. If you're playing as Hatshepsut, you're probably playing as Egypt, and then maybe moving through to Abbasid in the Second Age. And indeed, just in case you don't know already, that's the path that the AI will generally take, the quote-unquote historical choice. Now we have a 2-for-1. This is the recently announced Xerxes, and here we have 2 personalities inside of one leader. 2 different options to choose from at the start of the game and for the whole game. King of Kings, a militarist, and economic mind, or alternatively, the peaceful, the Achaemenid, a cultural and economic leader. Let's step into the militarism first. I choose to divide it this way instead of the way it's divided in the trailers. This is a militarist and economic leader, the King of Kings version of Xerxes, traditionally Persian. He likes leaders who are at war and dislikes leaders at peace, and receives +3 combat strength for units fighting, attacking, in neutral or enemy territory, so not in friendly lands. A one-time +100 culture and gold boost every time you capture a settlement the first time, and 10% gold in all settlements. Doubled, by the way, just to focus back in here, if you didn't found them, so capturing one is great for you. +1 settlement limit per age generally is also pretty good. Lots of power there. Let's step aside and take a look at the Achaemenid, the cultural, economic, the trader version. Essentially a different leader for everything except aesthetics. Likes leaders who have fewer trade routes, and is jealous of those who have more. You'll get +1 trade route limit with each leader and +50 culture and 100 gold per age the first time when you create a trade route or road. Interesting wording there, I thought. The Achaemenid also receives +1 culture and gold per age, so up to +3 on unique buildings and improvements. A nice benefit you can carry through with you through the ages. Maybe not the most powerful in the game. Let's take a look now at our third leader, 4th option, Augustus. This one probably not unfamiliar to you. Traditionally, of course, the leader of Rome. Augustus is a cultural and expansionist civ, and a lover of towns. Leader of civ, I should say. Their leader agenda, like leaders with many civs and dislikes those with loads of towns, and you'll get +2 production in the capital for every town. You can also purchase culture buildings in your towns, and you'll get a +50% gold boost towards purchasing those buildings. Augustus truly is the leader of towns, and also happens to be the leader that I've played with. I liked him, fairly simple to use, build up fast towns, buy stuff, loads of gold. Honestly, it felt pretty good. You might also choose to move through, after you've played as Rome, maybe to Greeks or Spain in the Second Age. At least that's what Xerxes recommends. Let's move through now to the traditional leader of Han China, Confucius. You might also like to play as Ming, the expansionist and scientific leader, and I think, honestly, one that could be incredibly strong. Let's take a look why. Confucius likes leaders with many specialists, likely inside of big cities, by the way, and dislikes leaders who don't really have any. And that specialist love affair continues with +2 science per specialist. I'm a sucker for a scientific civ, I won't lie. This seems pretty generically good to me. With a love of grass, fair enough, and a starting bonus for that on their map, Confucius gets a generically good +25% growth rate in all of your cities. Generically good benefits that are easy to use are generally the kind of benefits that I recommend. They can adapt to different playstyles, lean into that great wall of science perhaps as you move through a traditional Chinese civ journey. Han China and then perhaps as Ming. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more options, perhaps there one day too. Anyway, enough speculation. Let's move through and look at our next leader, Tecumseh, traditionally leader of the Shawnee, of course, and perfectly paired with them, obviously. Leader attributes are diplomatic and militarist, or maybe diplomatic and economic, depending on where you look in the trailer. Grassland and plains is Tecumseh's starting bias, and they really quite like independent people. This dude loves to be a protector of the little guy, disliking leaders who pursue them. And with +1 food and production per age in settlements for every city-state you're suzerain of, that continues. You'll also get a bit of combat strength as well for each independent person you're the suzerain of. A lot of people commented on my last video, how does militarist and diplomatic go together? That is how. Defender of the little guy, fighter of the big. According to Social Blade, this channel will not reach 100k subs by Civ 7 Day, and I think that you, can change that. If you like my stuff, consider hitting that subalicious button down below. We're about 5,000 people behind where we need to be, but the internet is a vast place. Now, let's get back to the leaders we'll be playing for the next decade. Let's move through now to Trưng Trắc, who I might have thought would be leader of Vietnam, though at the time of recording we haven't seen a Vietnamese civ yet. This militaristic and scientific leader likely pairs so far with Khmer, and they dislike leaders with highly promoted commanders, and here's why. Her commanders are brilliant, +3 promotions on her first one. That's very strong, by the way. These promotions are so good. Also +20% commander experience more broadly, so you'll get future promotions faster. In your starting bias, tropical and vegetated tiles. And this is really strong because you get +10% science and cities that are based in tropical tiles, and that is doubled while in a formal war declared by you. So you have control over that extra effect. A nice little benefit that shouldn't be overlooked. Anyway, I think they're going to be very good, but enough speculation. Next up on our list, it's Ashoka, another fairly early announced leader of the Mauryan Indians and perhaps other Indian civilizations, and again with a split personality. World Renouncer is an expansionist diplomat. Let's delve into the World Renouncer a bit more. They like leaders with happy empires and dislike those who are unhappy. +1 food in cities for every 5 excess happiness. And you'll see this love of happiness, this happiness affair return here with +10% food in settlements during a celebration. And I'd like to pause here, just focus in on that one more time, because there's also buildings. A benefit to them. +1 happiness, adjacency for all improvements. This is really a happy leader. Let's take a look at the opposite. Perhaps the more aggressive, the world conqueror version of Ashoka, a militarist without regret, liking leaders with expansive empires and disliking eeny-weeny ones. +1 production for every excess happiness in cities is probably pretty good, as well as 10% production in settlements that he didn't found, i.e. you've captured them from somebody else. Nice benefits there. With the extra 10 combat strength, more than other similar benefits we've seen. But take a look at the fine print. It's against districts for all units and only during a celebration. The upside here, you get a celebration whenever you declare a formal war. A few caveats there, but +10% combat strength, even if it's just against districts, is a very powerful effect from what we've seen. Let's put these two Ashokas aside and move right on through to you, Amina. We haven't seen a lot about Amina yet, a common theme for the rest of the video. However, we do know from some early gameplay that they'll receive +1 resource capacity in cities, 1 gold per age for each resource assigned to them, and 5 combat strength for units in plains or desert, regardless of who holds that tile. Now, in terms of resources, again, they've barely scratched the surface, but we know that there'll be 3 different types of resource, and of the 3 different types, 2 of them will be able to be assigned to both settlements and cities. 1 will only be able to be applied to cities. I can delve into this in a future video because there is a lot to unpack, but I'd like to give Firaxis a bit more time to talk about it first, so I'm going to pause this explainer here, and we're going to shift our focus to you, Napoleon, who also has split personality. I shouldn't say that. Who has 2 different leader personas. However, again, not a lot of information here, except for the fact that to get access to the Emperor persona, rather than the revolutionary one, you'll need to make sure that you connect your 2K account. We're still waiting on more information at the time of recording, so I'll pause the Napoleonic discussion here. We'll now shift to Himeko, leader likely of Japan, Meiji in the modern age, and we know that a friendship and diplomatic focus, giving her abilities to build up other strengths like science, perhaps militarism, was what was mentioned in the Civilization 7 Nintendo Switch trailer, but outside of that, little has been revealed. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see multiple Japanese civs inside of the game, given how India and China have been treated, but again, we'll have to wait and see. And finally there, as a bonus, I know I said 10, but we did actually get a glimpse of this dude, Benjamin Franklin, American all-rounder, when we also saw Himeko just now. We know literally nothing about Benjamin Franklin, except of course for everything we know from the actual dude in history, so I'm assuming this is your American leader. I'm assuming in the modern age, but those at this point are just wild speculation. So I'm going to stop speculating and now shift to just a couple of other things that I think it's important to mention about leaders. Firstly, we've seen these multiple personas, and you might have different views on this. The way that I see it is it's probably a quick and efficient way for Xerxes to add extra leaders in with a relatively lower cost, a relatively lower barrier to entry, right? They've already done the research, they've already done the background. Here's a leader with two very different phases in their life, or different goals, ambitions, and that's how they're representing it. In terms of gameplay, I think it's probably a win. We effectively get extra leaders if you ignore the aesthetic similarity, right? It's literally a different leader. However, it could become a little bit confusing if this happens too much. Too much of this. You know, is it red Napoleon or blue Napoleon? Is it green Franklin or grey Franklin? I don't know how these distinctions will end up playing out in your mind, but that's probably how they'll go for me. It's also important to note leaders can be leveled up as you move through the game with leader attributes. So as you play through each of these 3 ages and keep your consistent leader, throwing in new civilizations and throwing out your old one, you need to keep that in mind, that your leader doesn't just have the fixed abilities we've talked about at the start, but also more, and you can add that to them and really structure their strengths. What are they focused on? Are they a good fighter? Are they a good runner? Are they a good diplomat? It'll be entirely up to you. Thank you for joining me in this somewhat whirlwind tour of the first 10, maybe 11 leaders in Civilization 7. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.